Editing portraits using Photoshop Fix. Begin by cropping your image so that you create a strong focal point or area of emphasis. Next, you're going to make adjustments to the image contrast. When doing this, you are adjusting the whole image's exposure, contrast, highlights, and shadows. Important to know that there is no fixed formula while you're making these adjustments. So you have to make the adjustments until the image looks the way you think that it will look best. Now on to color. You're going to adjust image color, and you want it to be realistic. You want to make sure here's where we fix any white balance that may have been off. So we start with warmth and saturation, and that will take out anything that's too yellow or too blue. And the goal is to make the image look as close to its real self as possible here. You could always make the image black and white here if you're not completely thrilled with the color. That's a nice out by pulling out the saturation. Now we're going to burn and dodge to improve targeted shadows and highlights. Remember that when we are lightening an area, we're adjusting the highlights of an image. So we're going to adjust the opacity, hardness, and size of our brush. You want the opacity to not be too overwhelming. And the hardness of the brush, if you need it to blend, you want the hardness down to 0. Very important to zoom in when you're working, making the brush the size you want it to so that you can do your best work. When you're burning an area, you're darkening the area. So you're adjusting, again, the opacity, hardness, and size of your brush. Be careful. I would not necessarily darken the skin. If you do that, do it with such caution and light opacity. Otherwise, it's going to literally discolor the skin, so be cautious with that. Here I'm darkening the background because I want the background to look really rich and black. I want it to have nice contrast to her skin. Now we're on to advanced edits, and this is as needed. This is not always necessary, but first I'm going to start by smoothing skin. Don't overdo it or the image will look completely fake. So here, again, we're adjusting opacity, hardness, and the size of the brush. Zoom in while you're doing this so you can see the results as you work. I would be careful not to smooth anything that really should have a sharp focus, like eyelashes or the catch light around the eye or lips, hair. That's something where you want to maintain the texture that exists there. You could always click the restore button to undo an area if you just want to partially undo it rather than the whole command. Next, we're on to whitening eyes and teeth with paint in the blend mode. So make sure that the brush is in the blend mode. Adjust, select your color, hardness. You might want it a hard edge if you're on an area with a line. Opacity, adjust it as needed. You don't want it to be too crazy white bold like Ross when he had the white teeth when he was in a room with a black light. Don't do that. But definitely zoom in. Whites on the eyes and the teeth is common. Now we're going to further repair skin, etc. using the spot healing, clone stamp, and patch tools. But please remember, you're perfect the way you are. I'm just showing you this so you know. Adjust the hardness and the size as needed. Again, this is like an amazing tool. It's the spot healing brush tool. You literally tap one area and it will zap away a pimple, which is pretty cool. The way clone stamp works, you're going to create a target that you want to use as what you cover up. So if you touch an area that's similar, like I'm going to touch the black background to get rid of the hair that's coming out from behind her head. So where I touch is the target, and then it takes away wherever I rub my finger. Finally, you could defocus to create a little more blurry background, a more shallow depth of field. So I'm just going to blur out everywhere that is not her face because I really want her face to pop. So the opacity is kind of like how much it'll blur it out. I bring it down here kind of a lot because I really want it to defocus, and I want that eye just to be drawn right to my daughter's beautiful green eyes, and that's what we're doing here. So do that as needed. This can really create a really cool shallow depth of field and make the background less distracting. So that's it. Using Photoshop Fix, you really can take an image and maybe the color was slightly off, or maybe the background had something distracting in it, and you can clean an image up really well and make something spectacular in just a few minutes. Good luck!